Hello, welcome to Mad Dodge Productions, broadcasting once again live from Northern England inside my damn castle. I finally took it, Jensen. Fuck off, you can't have it back. I fart in your general direction. No, this is MC and Mad Talk the Civil War,
you're
episode
claiming
23.
French ancestry. Not a surprise.
Yeah, I know, right? This is episode 23, Gettysburg, part 2, day 1 of battle. So we're finally at some of the bloodshed, MC. Tell me how the Confederates lost. What the fuck happened, man?
We're just going to talk about day one, but we're going to talk about initially the start of this, all right? And that's one of the things that I think is very important, so that people start to understand what the dynamics of this battle were. All right. Now, first of all, we start with this, and this is you can go ahead and share it if you want. This. I realize the map is kind of small. Let me see if I can zoom it out a little bit. There, that's probably a little bit easier for people to understand. What you're seeing here at the beginning, right, is the initial deployment of Buford's cavalry. Now, Buford is probably one of the best cavalry commanders, all right, in the war, but he's not. He is the exact antithesis, all right, from a personality standpoint of somebody like Stuart. He's not somebody who embellishes himself. He doesn't embellish his group's accomplishments. It is now. We talked about last week. We talked about what Buford did, and we're early on at Brandy Station. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to do a quick recap of what we did last week, since this is kind of we're gonna end up doing a 4-episode fucking of Gettysburg.
What we talked about last week was the movement that got us to where we're at right now, because this turns into a meeting engagement, and it's why people have to understand, all right, what's going on here. At this point in time, right, Lee has realized that the Union Army is on the move, that it is much closer than he thought it was. And so what he's doing is he's trying to say, okay, I need to reconsolidate the army so that it doesn't get destroyed in detail. All right. Now, during the maps, one of the things that are, and you might be able to see my cursor, is Lee's group is all over here. They're spread out all over in this area, right? Including the Carlisle Road. You'll see in some of the other maps coming down that some of his troops are actually end up coming down through the Carlisle Road and so forth.
Yeah,
north of this. But the initial
also Jeb Stuart has yet to connect back with the Army in Northern Virginia. He doesn't reach the battle until day 2, right?
Here. He's out in the wind, out of touch with everything. All right. The Union forces are way down here, all right, coming up through this road. And you'll see this, all right? So the initial deployment is Buford's cavalry. Buford has approximately 3,000 men in his division, right? And basically divided into 2 brigades.
How many does Heath have?
Heath has close to 10,000, not quite 10,000.
See, that's my point, and we're going to get to that, but I'm going to let you continue. But that's my point right there.
Heath is under the impression, he's told to move in. They've heard that there are shoes at Gettysburg, so he's moving into Gettysburg because take a look at Gettysburg. Just from this part of the map itself, you can tell all these roads are leading into Gettysburg. Okay, so this becomes a junction point. All right. Now, Lee has recognized the fact that this is a junction point, and he needs to take control of this junction point, which is why he starts sending his men notes to say, okay, let's consolidate. And the best way to consolidate, of course, is to run down these roads into Gettysburg. And he wants to make sure that he takes Gettysburg so he can reconsolidate his army. All right. He has told Heath to move in. Heath has done a shit job, and the word is shit job, of actually reconnoitering what he's going against. He sees that there's a deployment of Union troops, but he thinks that they're militia.
Well, I don't care if he thinks they're militia or if he's a scared little bitch. He's got 10,000 men, you say? How many does Buford have again? 3? Come on. Well, he should be able to wipe him out in detail, move through the town.
Except Buford also has something else. He is fully supplied, both of his entire unit, with Spencer rifles. Breech loading rifles. He has them.
Wow. Okay. That is a game changer right there.
Right?
You failed to mention that when we were off air. You could have fucking told me that.
All right. So here comes Heath, thinking he's dealing with militia. Not only is it dismounted cavalry, all right, but they have Spencer rifles. They have a lot more firepower than the average troop in the Union, because the Spencer rifles are relatively new, and his was one of the first outfits to come out. This allows you now to fire from cover, put the cartridge in, fire, put the cartridge in, fire, rather than lift up the musket, tamp it down, tamp down this. This is a major advantage.
And they were lever action too, right?
No, these are not the lever actions that come later. They're not the Henry rifle. They're the Spencer rifles.
I gotcha. Okay, all right.
All right, they're the first advance. But the fact that you can do it from the breech means you don't have to lift yourself into a vulnerable position. All right, fire.
Well, no, in MC, my first gun I ever bought myself was it was a reproduction, but it was the old 1889 version of the breech action 12 gauge, and I got to where I could do 12 shots fucking easy, like drunk. I could do that shit in a fucking minute. You just pop it open, bullet flies out, throw another one in, bam, you're ready to go again. Easy, man. And train troops with that weapon. Damn. I know we're not talking shotguns, we're talking rifles, but still.
Yes, and the fact is you have a lot more firepower. You do have significant more firepower. Did
they auto eject? When you crack the breech, does the bullet auto eject?
Well,
like on the 12 gauge.
They're not using cartridge rounds. They're not using that kind of cartridge at this point. Right? These are the initial cartridge rounds, where it's just paper cartridges. You don't need to auto eject because the cartridge is gone.
Oh, gotcha. All right, go ahead and continue. Sorry, right. I was kind of reminiscent about my old gun. I missed that gun.
What you see is Heath deploys quickly, right, thinking he's just going to overrun this very quickly, and he sends Archer's brigade in. Okay, Archer gets captured actually.
No shit.
Yes.
Fucking Archer. Like,
so General,
you want to get ants? This is how we get ants.
No, anyway. We'll talk about this at the end. Remind me to tell you just how badly what's left of Heath's division after Gettysburg, because this is just the start of it. All right, Heath's division actually is heavily.
But even with a better weapon, though, you still got 10,000 men, and you kind of have. It was kind of a surprise, right, for Buford. At least that's how it's portrayed in fiction in the movie Gettysburg, that it was a surprise. I don't necessarily know if that's true or not.
It's a surprise for Heath. He thinks he's dealing with militia. He sends basically a brigade and a half initially, and they get badly beaten back. Because they're freaking from a number standpoint, it's probably fairly close. All right, but the reality is that they're quite outnumbered. All right, and or they're quite out from a firepower standpoint. They're quite
outgunned.
Outgunned. So yeah. He falls back. All right, and then starts to deploy, and it begins to try and deploy his entire division. All right, and he starts to have an effect when this happens. Reynolds arrives. Okay, Reynolds then begins to deploy his units.
That's infantry. That's infantry, not cavalry, right?
It's an entire corps. Okay, it's not.
So we're talking what 30,000?
No, you're talking about another 10,000.
Another 10,000. Okay.
All right. Now let me close this one and go bring up a different map.
Well, as you do that, I'll stop presenting you. So at this point, when Reynolds shows up, Heath is now not only outgunned by the dismounted cavalry, but he's outmanned by the heavy infantry moving in, right?
Right.
But he also has Confederates moving into position as well.
There are more Confederate forces coming down, and you're going to see this in this map here. I think it's this one. Let me make sure it's this one. Nope, wrong one.
But he does push them through Gettysburg. They end up in a street-to-street, almost house-to-house battle.
Right. We'll get. But I want to talk about some things before that happens.
All right, fair enough. I'll go ahead and let you get your shit together here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to stop sharing that.
Yeah, it's all good. As you're doing that, as the British, I don't know, let's call you an observer here. What do you think? 10,000 men versus 3,000, Jensen? Even outgunned, they should have been able to push them through before Reynolds showed up, right?
No, actually, I don't. You got to remember that the original muskets, the absolute fastest they were generally reloaded were 14 seconds. Now, how many shots did you say you was able to get off in 12 seconds, mate?
Oh, dude, with that shotgun, I was good. Like, fucking, you shoot, auto eject, load another cartridge in. I got fucking 15, 16 rounds drunk fucking in a minute or whatever. But sober, I was a lot better than that.
Well, that's the point. Basically, they may have had more people, but the sheer output of fire would have devastated them. And you got to remember that it's not actually the damage that you do to the people, it's the damage you do to their morale. Once they start to rout, then things just go to hell. And if you see your entire front line disappear under a hail of fire, the next line is definitely thinking to itself, sod that, mate, I'm not sticking my head over that hill. So,
almost like World War I, where entire French divisions were like, no, we're not going up and over. We'll defend, but we ain't going up and over, is what you're saying.
And the thing is, although they only had, what was it, you said 3,000, yeah?
Yes.
Right. Although they only had 3,000, they had the equivalent firepower of the 10,000 quite easily, just because of the speed that they would be able to fire at, and the fact that they wouldn't have to put themselves in instant, obvious danger just to reload their damn guns. No, unfortunately, MC's right. This is one of those situations where a smaller number with better technology will pretty much always kick the living hell out of the larger group.
All right, let's go ahead and go into this next map. I'm sorry it took so long for me to pull it up. I had it hidden. I didn't realize it was hidden. I kept trying to bring it. I could see it, but I couldn't bring it up. Go ahead.
It's all good. Yep, I got you presented. Go for it.
All right. So now here's what you start seeing. AP Hill arrives with his entire corps. Okay, and you see now with Heath, you've seen where he got captured and stuff, but you're also seeing where Reynolds has now come in. You're also seeing what happens when Reynolds arrives. Buford allows Reynolds to come online on Seminary Ridge, right? This is Seminary Ridge. All right. And he pulls his units back so that he can come up here to place Devon up here and his units up here. The reason is because you have Confederate troops, all right, not just APL's corps, but other Union troops, all right, coming down these roads that you saw on the first map. Okay. Gamble is then pulled back into a reserve. Even now, though, the first corps under Reynolds, all right, Reynolds in this battle, all right, gets there about 10 o'clock, but at 10:45, he is shot and killed.
Really?
Yes.
And when you're talking about troop morale, when your commander gets shot and killed on the field, that doesn't help. I mean, we saw that with Stonewall Jackson. They hid him from the troops when he was shot, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was shot, and they didn't let the troops know that they were the ones that shot him. But what you see now is his entire division is now able to push back.
Wait a minute. What about the 42nd Mississippi, 2nd Mississippi, and the 55th North Carolina? They're captured, aren't they? Or do they retreat from there? Because they're surrounded on looking at this map.
You're talking about here?
Yeah.
No, this is them here, and this is how they move.
Oh, okay. I got you. All right.
All right. As they come through, they push. Devlin is pushed out of position. All right. The rest of them move over and now begin to push them down into the city. Okay. This is, remember I said Lutheran Seminary. This right here is the rest of it's a blown up version of Seminary Ridge. Okay. The Lutheran Seminary is where Buford initially set up his headquarters as a viewing point so he could view the battle.
Which is why I believe Lee, after they capture it, uses it as his headquarters, right?
Right. I mean, it's got a nice view of the battle and so forth. This right here is the railroad cut that they always talk about in the show. Right here.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And this is, you can also see this is also part of Reynolds's group. Now, as the Southerners start to move down, as the Southern Corps start to consolidate, all right, the Union troops are moving in as well. And let me go and pull up the next map for this.
And this is where the Union is actually starting to give ground as more Confederates start to come in. And it looked like from that map that the Confederates could almost get to the flank. The far right flank, I believe, of the Union Army. It might be the left flank, but
well, you see them
looked up in the air.
They're able to push both of the flanks, all right. And you're also now starting to see, okay, what's happening, all right, as they come in. This map is very good about this, all right. Now, what you can see here now is there's been fighting all along here. Early's division and Gordon have now arrived, coming down from Cashtown. Okay, and they begin to push out Doubleday, who has also arrived, all right, to help stem some of this that's going on, is also trying to help what's happened to Reynolds. And this is at 2:45, between 2:45 and 4 o'clock. You see, they still have not entered, okay, Gettysburg.
Yeah, no, and I want to bring up the fact the Confederate troops aren't using rail lines like the Union is to get their troops up. They're double timing it pretty much. So they might not be.
Well, both sides at this point, neither side at this point are really in trains. They're both on roads because they don't know where the other one was going.
Oh,
so they're all marching.
That's a very good point. Okay,
they're all
so
marching and going straight into these battles. All right, and they're doing it all on foot. All right. Rhodes's division comes on down. You have Early's division start coming out, and the way they come in, it's almost back behind these lines. You can see that they're coming in from the northeast, all right, and are actually going to be able to take this. And they would have been able to take them completely from behind, except for the fact that Doubleday's group has moved in along with Howard's Corps. All right, so it's a meeting engagement as both units arrive. One side gets troops, the other side gets troops. Both sides are just getting troops, and they're just throwing them straight into battle. And Wheeler sets up his guns in a very advantageous position, all right, to prevent this support and this collapse, all right, that's starting to happen from Reynolds' troops. All right.
Yeah, no, and they are starting to collapse. Look at the Confederate alignment here compared to the Union.
Right. So you see them come online, you see them attack, and now you're seeing the push. And this Barlow here that they're talking about is actually a Confederate. The Barlow's troops at the end of this movie, this is where they're starting to push everyone out of position, and you see the Union start to withdraw. All right, through Gettysburg. But the withdrawal through Gettysburg doesn't really begin until probably around 5 o'clock. In the afternoon. And
where's Lee at this point? Lee's not even here yet.
Lee is just starting to arrive. He's like over in this area over here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like, he can't direct troops. He can't do anything. Everything is happening out of his hands at this point.
Out of his direct command. He's just giving commands. When you arrive, go into battle. All right.
Yeah, hurry the fuck up, boys.
You know, get people. And of course, the Union's doing the same thing. As they arrive, all right, they're coming into this fight. So the fight begins, and it's a disjointed affair, okay? Because you're just being set up online. You're being told, go here, run here, put your stake down, and start firing, boys. On both sides.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. I see a bunch of Louisiana troops moving in from the northeast as well.
Right.
The northeast.
This is part of Early's division with Gordon. And you see them, they're able to push the Union forces back because they outnumber and they outflank the Union forces drastically. Because the Union forces cannot deploy. They just don't have the ability to deploy at this point.
But now, as they're falling back through Gettysburg, though, they're not necessarily giving Gettysburg easily, right?
No,
we're going house to house, street to street.
You're seeing this. You're seeing this. A running gun battle taking place. But there's two things happening. You got Reynolds' troops running into there, but you've also got part of Doubleday's and Howard's troops running through there. So there's a bit of chaos on the Union side. But as they go out and as they leave, All right, that chaos then transfers over to the Confederate troops. You got Confederate troops from both sides going into the city, all right, and mixing and intermixing with each other. All right, so this becomes a problem.
Not only that, but the Confederates are there for a reason. They were there to get supplies. They're not only fighting house to house, but they're raiding, right?
Right. Now, as things start to stabilize at 7 o'clock at night, you're starting to see where the deployment is. Now, here's why there was no chance at all right, for the South to ever take this. Because Steinwehr, right? He didn't go into the North. He didn't go in and deploy into Gettysburg. He said, you know what? This is good ground. Let's deploy here. And he had already started setting up to include all of this.
Still, though, if you're looking at the Union configuration,
no,
you should be able to get them in a pincher move here.
What don't you see from the South?
No, I get it. They're at the flanks, but they have nothing in the center.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, what are you talking about?
No artillery whatsoever.
True, but this is an invasion move. It's the artillery's further back in the convoy or whatever.
It is. Their stuff is, but the Union has consolidated all this artillery fire. You're going to move these Confederate troops into an open area straight into mass concentrated Union artillery fire.
How much do you outnumber them? I mean, at that point,
you don't, from troop levels, remember, you're going into troops that are already beginning to fortify, and they have plenty of artillery. You have none in your support.
But I can still see why Lee was pissed, though. I mean, you left them with the good ground. Now you can surround and still take them at this point, though. Look how they're configured, even with the artillery.
Okay, you think you could surround? You think you can surround? You don't have the ability to surround. All the Union troops are coming up Tiny Town Road. They're flowing in here all throughout the day. They're flowing through this road. So how are you going to flank it? If you attempt to move these troops out on a further flank, now you were wondering why they didn't take Little Round Top and Big Round Top. In order for them to do it, they would have had to open up a huge hole, a huge gap in their lines to run them down here. And what would have happened? Then they would be stuck between all this artillery on the Union side and the Union forces coming up to drive them off. This entire corps would have been wiped out if they'd attempted to do that. So you're not going to take the Round Tops. So now the question is can you take Culp's Hill? All right, fine. We'll take a look at what happens here. These troops just fought their way, and this, you got to remember, you're dealing with the temperatures of 100 degrees, all right? And all the humidity you ever wanted, right, that you've been fighting with all day. You have now straightened things out. It's taken 2.5 hours to straighten out your lines.
But wait a minute, though.
Wait
a minute, though. Wait. No, you can talk all you want. You can talk all you want about the heat and humidity, but what I'm looking at here, trying to take Culps, is Louisiana troops. You don't think they've dealt with humidity and heat, motherfucker? Come on.
They've been fighting these are the same troops that you just saw drive out the Union forces earlier. They've been fighting this entire time.
I think the Louisiana Tigers could push them off of Culps.
They would have been slaughtered with this artillery. They would have been in an open area, exposed, getting hit by massed artillery fire. How long do you think they would have lasted?
It looks to me like most of the artillery is pointed the other direction.
How fast can you move? You got the interior lines. It wouldn't take long for them to redeploy.
But then you push from the other end.
You attempt to push. This becomes the problem. If they attempt to push from this end, remember, the Union troops are arriving here. You are endangering this flank of this corps without any artillery support whatsoever and hoping that it doesn't get wiped out. That's what you were hoping to do. There was no way. Remember,
flank with O'Neill, Daniel.
The thing is Stenware had been here for over 2 hours. These were not just hasty positions. These are pretty well strengthened. You are not going to take this. Okay? All you're going to do is waste your men in an attempt to flank and actually get flanked yourself. It would have been Pickett's charge a day earlier. That's what it would have been.
I was about ready to say, do I need to tell you Lee's decision on day 2? I mean, come on. Right. Like, I'm not saying anything Lee wouldn't have thought about if he had this map in front of him. You know what I mean?
And what was the result?
Well, we're gonna get to that next week in day 2. But okay, all right. Jensen,
is you guys think that you could have taken Culp's Hill with this much Union artillery hitting an open flanks of the enemy? No freaking way.
Okay, our great British advisor, what say you? How would you take this position, if at all? And if you don't, why aren't you just then fortifying the town and waiting for them to come at you? I mean, that's not what they do either, is it?
No, that is what I would have done. Force them to move. To be honest, artillery can literally win you entire battles, except for the fact that when the buggers have to move, because they're not exactly the quickest. Force them to come to you. At that point, they are having to do a siege tactic. And if you've got any sort of decent numbers in the actual town, I mean, the town is going to be absolutely flattened. Deal with it, okay?
Well, and this is a Yankee town at that point. Why do you give a fuck, right? I mean, screw them.
No. See, that's the point. It's all well and good thinking of the people in the town as completely unimportant, but it's not. It's again, I'm coming back to the morale thing. If your troops are known to be just arbitrarily letting the townsfolk get butchered, that is not going to be good for you. Your own people are not going to be impressed with this. But given the base question, I would have pulled back into the town, fortified its ass, and basically tried to snipe off what I can while they're coming to me. Then they are going across the open ground. They are the ones in the weakness. Generally, a defended area is going to win a damn sight more than an attacking area, unless said attackers have got, I believe it's 2 to 3 times the number of people you need. Otherwise, they're generally going to have.
Normally you're looking at they want a 3-to-1 advantage before.
Okay. Yeah, no, and Jensen, I don't want to cut you off because you hardly say anything. But MC, I do want to know, what's the layout of the town itself? Could the Confederates have dug in around the town and let them come at them? Would it have been another I can't remember the name of the heights, but you know what I mean, with the artillery.
You gotta remember though, okay, you gotta remember something, right? If they could they have dug in and held out for a while, sure. All right, but you then run the risk of running out of supplies. Okay, you're in enemy territory. All right, your logistics chain, you have separated yourself from your logistics. There was no way you were going to get up ammo or anything else. All right, while this battle continued. So in a battle of attrition, you were going to lose.
No, that's a good point, MC. I knew you were going to say that. I want to follow that up with this question. If you dig in around a Union city for the first and only time in the war, which is what this would have been, can you make the Union attack you? Because if they just sit there, then you're defeating the
They would not have attacked day 1. And they may not have attacked day 2 as forces were still coming up from both sides. If you're just digging in and you're just trying to consolidate your forces, which both sides were doing, all right, it wouldn't have been day 1 or day 2 that would have happened. All right, it would have been if there was going to be an attack, it would have been from day 3. All right. And
at that point, the Union has 100,000 men, and you're behind enemy lines. The people of the city aren't helping you, and you got to fucking defeat 100,000 men. And what's more is
you have to extend your lines for one reason only. Lee had to keep one idea always uppermost in his mind, and he did. All right, and that was he had to be able to get back south.
Yeah, how do I retreat?
An escape route, right? Yeah. He couldn't been cut off because if he loses his ability to retreat, he's in a dire situation. All right, there's another problem that he's dealing with, and that is he still doesn't have. He still doesn't have Stuart. Stuart isn't there. Okay,
he doesn't arrive till day 2, right?
He doesn't arrive until late on day 2. Okay, I mean it isn't till late in day 2 before he arrives.
But at this point, he's heard about the clash between Confederate and Union forces, right? He's still being pursued. We covered that last week, but he's heard by now, I'm sure.
He knows that he knows. He thinks initially where he's riding to right now, where Stewart is riding to right now, he's actually riding to Cashtown because he thinks that that's where Early is.
Oh, and yeah, and he doesn't have any spy network up there. He has no real way to get information.
Nope. He does not know that they've moved to Gettysburg. He doesn't know that they moved to Gettysburg. And in fact, he arrives from Cashtown. All right, after he gets to Cashtown and finds that Early has already left. All right, he rides back down, and then that's where he comes back from in day 2. All right, but so Lee is this is a true meeting engagement. Many sometimes battles happen this way. Neither side is really prepared to fight in this ground. It just happens to be where both sides start seeing one another and the battle starts to take place, and both sides run troops in as fast as possible, arriving kind of in a way about at the same rate. Initially, the Confederates have a faster rate of arrival than the Union does. All right, but
because they were closer together, right?
Over time, well, yeah, because they've started their consolidation movement much sooner. All right, the Union is also strung out in a long line. All right, that's way along that town road. Right, they're strung out along that entire road line there. So while they can move up, and as they're moving up, there's a constant influx of Union troops. It's still, the reality is initially the Confederates are able to consolidate quicker, which is why they're able to win day 1 as far as pushing them off of Seminary Ridge. All right, but at the same time, they're pushing them into where the Union is coming from. All right, which allows them to build up on Cemetery Ridge. And you see the artillery is able to set up on Cemetery Ridge heavily. All right, they are outgunned. I'm telling you right now, the South at this point on Culp's Hill are seriously outgunned. If they would have attempted to force that line at that point in time, they basically would have lost Early's entire corps. This idea that they could have gone right over the top is fantasy making. All right.
Well, this isn't only my idea. This has been speculated many times.
It has been speculated because it's been speculated because of the Confederate generals' comments. But the reality was that the Confederate generals did not realize just how heavily reinforced the Union was already on Cemetery Ridge. If they had attempted to do that, especially initially where they were completely discombobulated after going through Gettysburg, they were not prepared organizationally to even attempt an attack like that. It's fantasy making at its best.
All right, here's a real question. Okay. We all know that before Pickett's charge, the Confederacy let loose a gigantic artillery barrage. And that's a fact. When did the artillery get here?
Well, the artillery. All right, let me see if I can pull up another map again. But the artillery doesn't really arrive until the second day. In fact, if you remember correctly, throughout the entire second day's battles, you have almost no Confederate artillery support.
Until, like, what'd they do? An hour straight artillery barrage before Pickett's charge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's day 3. You're still
you're right. You're right. Okay. I'm jumping the gun on and going right to Pickett. Sorry. My bad.
You just want to get it over with.
I do. That's the worst moment of the whole war, in my opinion. That's worse than Appomattox, dude. Like, no, that was not good.
All right. Well, because it's the high point of the war. I mean, it's from the Confederate standpoint, it's the high watermark of the Confederacy, if you want to look at it.
Everything all right, Jensen? You've had to jump out and jump back in a couple times. You good?
Very, very sorry. My internet's being a bit glitchy. I think it might be best if I head. I'm not going to be much use if it keeps breaking down on me.
Well, give it one more chance. If it kicks you out again, just hang out in the chat, buddy. But give it one more shot.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. We were talking. I noticed I wanted to ask you. But give it one more shot because I like your input. And when I asked for it, you've given some great input. So stick around if you can, man.
Yep. I'll try, mate.
But no, it is the high watermark of the Confederacy. One, because it's the only real invasion. I mean, okay, there is fucking the year before or whatever, but whatever. That came out to a draw as well, which I call Gettysburg a draw. You might say it's a Union victory, right? You consider it a victory?
It's a huge Union victory.
You didn't wipe out Lee. You didn't necessarily really wipe out his fighting potential. I mean, really,
you've damaged it severely. What are you talking about?
No, I think you hurt Lee's ego, is what I think happened.
No, you've damaged Lee dramatically. We'll get into this. All right. could things have gone better for the Union if the Union would have reacted differently? Yeah, that's true. But it's not like this is not a Union victory. This is a big.
We didn't run. This wasn't fucking Manassas, dude.
Just because people didn't run doesn't mean that it's not a victory.
Matter of fact, Lee sits there for a whole day begging them to attack him. He doesn't give a shit, man. Like, what's up?
And what happens?
They don't attack, so Lee leaves.
They don't attack because they don't have to. All right. Here's a broader view of the first day. All right. And I realize it's Wikipedia, but at least you can get a good look as to what's happening here. Right. These are right here was the initial deployment. Right here was the initial deployment of Buford's cavalry. Right. Reynolds comes in. You see him extend these lines here and also through here. Right. This is where Reynolds and Doubleday, when Reynolds gets killed, his forces devolve into Doubleday, who's his second. Okay. Howard initially deployed up here. When Reynolds arrived, the first thing that Buford did is he moved his cavalry up here because he's got the Carlstown Road coming in. Ewell's forces arrived from Carlisle and also from the Harrisburg Road. All right. They push Howard back through here. However, as you can see, they were already being set up, and you're pushing the concentration of force into a smaller area. All right. Does this make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah. It's like the Battle of the 300. You can't funnel 100,000 troops into a tiny pass. 300. Well, it was actually like what, 1,500, 2,000 Greeks, yeah. But you know what I mean. Can't defend a tiny pass if you're being funneled in there to where we're fighting one line, killing them, and another line comes forward. You could do that all day. That's pretty much what you're talking about here, right?
So here's your morning deployment, very early in the morning at 7. All right. You can see this is Gamble's and Devlin's. This is Buford's cavalry. This is that seminary that Buford is using as to watch this, right? And you can see how all this. Now these represent pickets, okay, that flow back into this area.
Yeah, the pickets as in the forward troops, not picket as in the commander. I just want that made clear.
These are the picket forces, all right, as both picket forces come in, and as you can see. Remember this name here. This includes Pettigrew. You will see his name again. All right. You can see Heath is coming down the Chambersburg Pike. All right. He starts his deployment. He is outgunned. Okay. And you can see now as he starts to deploy his whole division, everything's starting to look good, but Reynolds arrives and starts to deploy his troops.
Yeah, it's like every time one side had a good push, the other side would reinforce, right?
Right, and that's exactly what this turns into. So Reynolds is killed. Doubleday now takes over. All right, the battle starts to extend. All right, more and more Pender's division begins to arrive. All right, Rhodes begins to come in, and Early is still coming down these two areas.
Well. Okay, let's stop right here. I'm looking at the Confederates here. Doles, O'Neill, Iverson, Daniel, the Rhodes division, right?
Right.
Why can't they attack Baxter and Cutler and push them through the woods?
They will, all right, but they have to come online first. All right. Remember, this is a meeting engagement. These things are just starting to take place, and this just shows you where they are at time. So this is already noon now. The battle for these guys here in Heath's division started at 7 a.m. All right, that means they've been fighting. All right, for
isn't that
4 hours already?
Isn't that when you let them just let the next line weed through them and attack? So you would have Scales come through Brockenborough.
They do have to
like,
come through these lines and so forth. But you got to remember, both sides are marching troops into these areas. Right? As you see, now this is what happens. You notice Stenware arrived. He didn't even deploy through here. All right. At 2 p.m., he is already setting up on Cemetery Hill. You're not. That's what I try to get you to understand this.
Yeah, no, was that
These
ordered?
Positions,
did he take that upon himself, or was he ordered to do that?
Because it looks like,
yeah, that's bullshit. Because you look at this, you got all your troops in a fight, and you're just back there setting up. I mean, I'd be kind of pissed if I was Meade and I showed up. Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Notice Meade hasn't even arrived. Meade's not even close to what's happening here. He's trying to rush units as quickly as possible because he knows an engagement is starting to take place. Meade doesn't even realize he's not even close to being a part of what's going on here. Neither's Lee, though.
That's what I was going to say.
Lee is pissed off already at Heath because Heath wasn't supposed to start an engagement here. Heath kicked it off by attacking Buford's cavalry, thinking it's just militia, and then and things start to get out of hand.
Yeah, Lee is fuming, by the way, and I think it's day 2 or day 3, though. I don't know if we should talk about it right now, but there is a rumor that Lee had a heart attack during this battle, a mild fucking heart attack, and that kind of changed the way he fucking made decisions. He wrote very vague orders, and he really didn't get his point across. What do you think about that rumor? Let's just fucking hit it right now. Screw it.
The biggest problem with it is that he's not talking to his orders are vague, but that's how his orders always were. All right, somewhat vague. All right, he expected his commanders to be able to interpret the orders and be able to react on an individual basis. Okay. He had gotten used to that. You got to remember, he's used to Stonewall Jackson taking the initiative when he needs to, and not taking the initiative when it suits the Confederacy the best.
Then why is he so mad at Heath at this point? Then because Heath took the initiative.
Because Heath didn't do what he should have done, which was find out what he was going to go up against. Heath didn't do a very good job reconnoitering what he was dealing with.
Oh no, and real quick, looking at the chat. Hey, what's up, Excel and Lotus Wolf? Every Sunday we cover the Civil War. It's a once a week show, and yeah, I mean it's not for everybody, but I enjoy doing it. I love history. So that's what this is. Anyway, welcome to the show. Hopefully you stick around, hit the like, and I know you're already subscribed, but hit that like button, please.
All right. So you start to see these battles start to take place along this entire line, but these are all meeting engagements, and they're being. Remember what I said before? While you're when you're marching in columns, all right, that's how you've got rapid movement. Once you separate like this, all right, you have a broader scale. You can do flanking. You have a lot more flexibility. But the one thing that you are sacrificing is rapid movement. Okay. Your troops can't control rapid movement of your entire force anymore. This is the whole purpose to force them online and delay their tactics. This is why at 2 p.m. you can see they still haven't taken Gettysburg.
Which, if you're looking at this like I am, from a history perspective, not necessarily military history, because that ain't my thing yet. I'm learning more as we go. But you would think the Confederates would easily sweep in and take Gettysburg. I mean, look at the alignments and look like the pincher moves. Iverson and O'Neill attacking Baxter. Baxter should have folded immediately, backed off. That opens up a hole. Then instead of Daniels attacking Stone, you move him in against Cutler. You have O'Neill and
Iverson. As troops start to flee into this, you got right here. You got Paul, all right, able to blunt a lot of this force to move in to help blunt it as holes start to open up. These things start to collapse. Don't get me wrong. The Union does start to fold back, and you'll start to see this. Whoops. Right here. I have the Union starting to fold back.
Real quick. Go back to that picture. I like that picture.
About what would happen to Baxter? You see Paul has now moved in to provide support to prevent O'Neill from just overrunning these positions. And you also see, where's Stenware? He's setting up right here.
Well, no, and O'Neill, in the movie Gettysburg, that is the Irish Brigade, that ends up facing off with the Union Irish Brigade, is it not?
The Union Irish Brigade is actually right here.
But later, I'm talking like day 2, I believe, day 2 or day 3 in the movie.
Oh, day 2 and day 3, yeah, you'll see that'll come later. But what you're seeing right now is the Union's Irish Brigade is actually fighting right here in this railroad cut.
Yeah, and O'Neill is the Confederate Irish Brigade, is what I'm bringing up here. Okay. Yeah.
So you see them beginning. You also see now that Ewell and Early have forced, all right, already at 4 o'clock, they've already forced them out of position here, all right, and now you're seeing the forced retreat. Okay, we got to pull back because now we can get cut off.
And Olmsted and fucking yeah, none of them are there yet, right?
They don't even arrive until day 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're that far back. You got to remember these troops are kind of spread out a bit.
Well, I know, and I'm just saying that mainly for everybody else, because I do know, like, obviously their name would be on there. I'm just saying for everybody else, like, the main players, if you ever seen the movie Gettysburg, they're not even here yet. That's probably going to be next week when they finally arrive.
I mean, for us,
anyway.
The other thing that happened that I haven't talked about here is Heath and Heath's division. Heath has been wounded as well. All right, so it isn't a severe wound, all right, but it is a wound, all right, and it does they initially carry him from the battlefield. I mean, he's able to return because it's a shallow head wound, but he is wounded in this battle.
A shallow head wound. Motherfucker's like Tupac. Shit bounces off his fucking dome piece.
Well, believe it or not, I mean, a shallow head wound in these things, you just got nicked, but you're getting nicked with an ounce of lead. Okay, so it's shallow.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. I was making a joke, but holy shit, I can imagine being like a shallow head wound. Like, no, motherfucker, I got shot in the head. God damn.
You know, I mean, it wasn't a direct hit, but it's close enough. You know, so I mean, he's wounded in the back.
You would think they would have came up with the metal helmets before World War I, and that's all I wanted to say. Like, I mean, seriously, helmets, guys.
Well, okay, there's some interesting things about metal helmets. What do soldiers start to use metal helmets for?
Mainly flak, right, and stuff in World War I.
Well, I mean, for protection and things, yeah. But I'm talking about what else? What would a soldier use it for?
Oh, cooking.
Yes, that's a problem. Because
why?
Okay, well, what is it that you do to steel? You quench it, right, to make it hardened.
Oh, so you keep cooking on it. Oh, I gotcha.
So you cook on them and they become soft.
Oh,
this becomes a problem.
I didn't even think about that. Damn. The more you know. Like,
all these things play into an account. So soldiers that are arriving with brand new helmets, those helmets are really good. But over time, as the soldiers use it for cooking for utensils and heating water or doing all these other things, they soften up and they're not nearly as protective as they are later on.
Yeah, no, but you can understand why the soldier would do that.
I mean, especially if you don't know that. Especially if you don't know that cooking the helmet weakens the helmet. Or if you don't know that, oh, hell yeah, I'd be boiling water in there to make coffee and everything else, which is especially from the United States' force is ubiquitous. We drink coffee all the time. The British, they would use them to brew tea and things like that. I mean, they wouldn't bother many as long as it's there. Without you.
Hey, Jensen, you ever brew tea in a helmet?
I neither confirm or deny, yes. Like, dude, please remember, the army actually marches on its stomach. And by the way, the thing with the head wound, you got to remember, a lot of casualties weren't necessarily fatalities because of the original injury. It was the diseases and the absolute lack of any good medical attention. That's the thing people forget.
Yep. And as I stated, we were talking on an earlier one with Shiloh. the Confederate commander died because he had sent his surgeon to go work on some Union soldiers that had been hurt. And when he got his wound, there was nobody there to give him medical attention. He probably would have survived if he had a competent doctor on there.
Oh no, he probably would have survived if he wasn't nice to the enemy. How dare you? No, you remember I started off this whole series talking about civilians this, civilians that. No, you've turned me into a tyrant, people. Like, screw it. Like, bomb them all. Like, we're done.
Well, you're starting to learn about the realities of what war actually is. Now you're starting to realize why I have some of the opinions I have.
Yep. In all fairness, when it came to that original question about how I would have dealt with things, I would have actually pulled back from the town, let them start to retake it, and then hit them while they're in a very disorganized state. But
you know what? You know what, Jensen, don't even mute yourself, dude. Let's get to that portion of the show, MC. What would you have done differently if you were the Union? How could you have swept the Confederates out of Gettysburg and sent Lee running with his tail between his damn legs?
Overall, to be honest, from the Union forces, I don't think that there's much that the Union could have done. The Union did everything that it could with what it had at the time, all right, and actually performed pretty magnificently on day one. Even Sternwer setting up Cemetery Ridge, realizing I've got to maintain and control this high ground, all right, to prevent the Confederates from even having a chance of getting it, was a brilliant move on his part. And the other thing, hold on, you got to remember that the other troops, Reynolds, all the other commanders, the one thing that they did know, right, was that what they were doing was a delaying action. They understood that this is a meeting engagement, and they all understood what they needed to do. They knew that they couldn't stop the entire force of the Confederacy. What they were doing was trying to delay these actions so that they could consolidate. All right, and they understood that. And they were willing to, and they went into this battle knowing that what they were doing wasn't going to hold the Confederacy for very long. All right, they were happy that they were able to hold them as long as they did.
Well, no, and actually
weren't stupid.
Well, no, and looking at the maps and stuff, yeah, I'm shocked that they did hold them as long as they did. Absolutely, but I think the whole idea that being brilliant is looking backwards in time. What if the Union had folded and they fell back to there and they kept falling back? It would have been him not shoring up the line and not doing his damn job. He should have been up there with the troops in the front line.
No. Who, Meade?
No, not Meade. Fucking the dude on Cemetery Ridge.
Sternweiler? That was his troops.
Yeah.
He set up his troops to give them a fallback position. That's what you do.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If the whole line, I don't know if the whole line would have folded and he didn't shore up because he wasn't, like you said, it was a meeting engagement. They weren't necessarily.
And he's setting up in a position to give the rest of the troops that he knows are coming up from Tawny Town on the Tawny Town Road. He's giving them a place to set up. He's giving them a fallback position. You got to remember, Reynolds and Doubleday and Howard, all those commanders know they can't hold. They know that they can't hold these lines. Okay? They understand what they're doing is a delaying action, and then they're at some point in time, they're going to fall back. Sternwer is told, you provide us the place to fall back to.
He was told that, or he did it on his own? Because that's the difference.
He kind of knew it on his own. He did it on his own. But he understood what he was doing. He understood what they were doing. All right, these are veteran. These guys have been fighting each other for 2 years already, 2.5 years. They understand what they have to do militarily. Well, most of them do. Sternwer did. Sickles, thankfully, Sickles wasn't a part of this. Okay. Thankfully, the Union general did not include Sickles. Sickles had to arrive because it would have been an absolute disaster if that dickhead had arrived earlier.
Oh, I wish
it was a disaster day 2.
It would have been great. I wish he was there.
You'll see him the next day. He arrives the next day.
He's a good guy. I like him.
You can eat a piece of him. You can go visit a piece of him at the.
Hey, you guys could have Braxton brag. I mean, it's all good. I don't need brag.
All right, you take Dan Sickles, we'll take Bragg. How's that?
Yeah, I don't. Wait a minute. I don't know.
I mean, if you're making trades, you are willing to make that trade. That's not a problem. But you see, Sternwar he's setting up a position. They're digging in. He has hours to dig in, and Gordon and some of these other guys, all right, think that okay, those hills were undefended. They were not. Okay, this is what caused a lot of people to believe that those hills around Culp's Hill and the Cemetery Ridge were undefended, but they were already, the Union was already setting up on those hills long before, all right, people realized this. And even if they would have driven through, because they basically drive through Gettysburg around 5:30 or so, right? Now, there is still plenty of light left in the day, all right? Sundown isn't until about 9 o'clock, right? So there is still plenty of light left. But the idea that the Union was totally in disarray on that hill and that they could just have easily pushed them off, no, they couldn't have. Because those positions had already been set up and were being set up for 4 or 5 hours already. They were not going into position where these guys just ran into it and were just, hastily trying to set up. Yes, they were being hastily set up. That's true. But they were going on to a position that was already predetermined to set up into. It was not as hasty, all right, or as undefended as these Confederate generals thought they were.
I guess that's a fair point. Even in fiction, they portray them as undefended pretty much. So, no, and looking at the map, you're right. He is already setting up there. And Little and Big Round Top, there's no way the Confederacy could have taken that on day one looking at the map itself. There's no fucking way.
If they would have attempted to swing those units out like that, that unit would have been in the wind, all right?
That's what
crushed.
No, and as we've done this series, this is week 23, man? Seriously, I've learned that already. You can't leave your flank out in the air. And yeah, that's what they would have been doing. There's no way they could have done that. You're absolutely right. Now, okay, let's swing it back around. Jensen, you're the Confederacy. Do you just not fight here? That's my idea. I don't fight here. We have the impact with Buford at the beginning. We pull back and redeploy and move towards DC. Let's pivot towards DC and really threaten them. And then the Union's going to consolidate somewhere to block our movement towards DC. And then we can pick and choose where we move from there, right?
Yes, completely.
Okay.
At the end of the day, as much as artillery are exceptionally useful, as I said earlier, they're weak because they're slow and they're very difficult to maneuver. If you can keep the enemy on the move, and you basically wolf pack your armies and scatter attack them, make them think that that's where you're doing your primary attack from. They will then try to set up, you've pulled back, they've got to remaneuver, it will throw them out. That's the whole point. Keep them confused, keep them moving, and find a way to channel them yourself. Obviously, these maps don't show me the stuff further to the north to get me more data, so as I could work out where, and for that matter, if I would even go for a full conflict. But as already stated, this wasn't a battle that they really wanted. It just sort of happened, which makes it a chaotic battle. All yours.
Yeah. Let's go back and let's take a look at this map. All right, now it's unfortunately it's a little large. Okay. As far as the amount of space that you're looking at here. All right, let me.
All right, yeah, I got you presented already, MC.
All right, let me share this in.
All right, no, and then I'll let you elaborate because I have my ideas too. Because Lee didn't want that battle. If Heath would have done with his job. Now the thing is, though, MC, if we pivot and move towards DC, right?
Okay.
Then we leave Stewart in the air. Stewart's gone. He's destroyed pretty much, right?
The question is okay, here's a good idea of the movement, all right, that you're seeing that was taking place, okay? Here's where your forces are. You've got a huge section of your force up here. you have a huge section of your force here, and then a Longstreet is coming up at the rear, way back over here, right? The Union is basically shadowing you like this, right, in 2 columns, all right? Basically column 1 and column 2, all right? And you see this is where they come in, all right, in Gettysburg, all right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
now
I don't want to fight in Gettysburg. So
right.
instead, I go back to, is that Cashtown to the left? No.
Chambersburg, right here.
Chambersburg. It's hard to see on this map.
This is Chambersburg.
Like getting...
So your idea is to reconsolidate back into Chambersburg?
Yeah, and then maybe head south again, or maybe attack. I don't know what you do from there, but you don't want to fight at Gettysburg. Nobody did. But now you're leaving Stuart up in the open, and along with
if you had retreated back to Chambersburg, you're hoping, you don't know where Stuart is. That's part of the problem, and Stuart is over here. Okay, this is problematic in and of itself. All right, you're leaving Stuart to continue to try and play catch up, to try and catch up at Chambersburg. He probably would have made it. He probably could have made it if he kept on going. All right.
Okay. All right, you're giving him more credit than I did. Okay, cool. All right.
Well, because he's able to come up from here and then come down, right? This is where Stuart actually goes. He goes like this. All right. On the second day he arrives here, they were ignoring, for all intents and purposes, the Union, all right, was more or less ignoring Stuart. So Stuart probably would have been able to get back if you had realigned back in Chambersburg. The problem, though, is then what? All right, you're back in Chambersburg, but you're actually not closer to D.C. You're actually further away. So if the idea is to come back and get into the D.C., you've got to, at this point, you're on this side of the ridgeline. Remember, this ridgeline is hard to deal with.
Well,
right?
I know. That's why I'm
nice and protective, but it's also hard to deal with. So how are you going to repivot to get back to D.C.? You would have to attempt to make a move. Now let me finish this out. I'm sorry for interrupting. If you would have gone back to Chambersburg, you probably could have attempted to go right through here, through these gaps here, in an attempt to try and draw it this way. But you're making a major risk doing that. And that is, you'd better be able to take D.C. very quickly, because if you can't, what you're going to get stuck with is between a hammer and an anvil, and you're never getting back home. It is extraordinarily risky to try and push yourself into this position right here, all right, where Union forces where the Union has freedom of movement, all right, with the rails, all right, in order to survive this. This is extraordinarily dangerous. So which is one of the reasons why they didn't do it. One of the reasons why they were up north.
Isn't that though Lee's whole character is doing something dangerous and rolling the dice?
All right. Let's say he rolled the dice here. All right, I really think that it would have been a mistake, and he would have been cut off from ever being able to retreat. He would not have been able to He ends up retreating the same way he basically comes, along this line here, using this ridge line to protect him. Okay, if you give that up, he doesn't have that ability. He is crushed.
Well, how do you? Well, I don't necessarily want to attack DC, though. I think is where you're getting me confused. What I want to do is make them think I want to attack DC. Okay. So where would you move to feint and attack the DC and try and find some good ground to actually do battle? Because if they think you're headed to DC, they're on the back foot.
Okay, the only way you could do that would be to come down, try and go the other way through Stuart, right? Try and go to your left, their right. If you attempt to go to your right, you're just going to be constantly blocked. So the only way, if you're really going to make an attempt to do it, would be to say, you know what? Since we're already here, instead of swinging down this way, we'll try to swing all the way down to the left. If you're really trying to be aggressive, right? But you're really risking it. You've got to understand how dangerous a maneuver that is.
Yeah, but here's
you want to talk about a roll of the dice? That would be a roll of the dice. But that's really the only way that you're going to do it, because you're not going to be able to move fast enough. The problem is Lee believed he could move faster than the Army of the Potomac. He could.
Well, that's been proved, though. That's why Lee thought it, man. But it was proved by Stonewall, who was no longer there, and Lee.
Not only that, but
Lee acted like he was still alive. It pisses me off.
The other problem is Lee, though. But Lee understands this. All right. The reason Lee doesn't, one of the reasons Lee doesn't do it is because what he doesn't have is interior lines. The Union has the interior lines. Okay. You as the South do not. You're going on the outside. You're on the outside looking in. So how were you going to go to threaten this? It's like these Harper's Ferry is well known. Could you have had a battle at Harper's Ferry? Yeah.
Again? Like, that's old news. Right? Like, how many battles did they have at Harper's Ferry?
Well, they trained, I think it changed hands something like 13, 14 times during the war.
Right? Like, no, let's leave Harper's Ferry alone. I can't believe anybody lived there still. No, okay. Here's the thing with Stuart. Well, no, because Baltimore on the Heights, they had a large freaking contingency of fucking artillery, didn't they? Yeah. There's no way you can do a cavalry raid on Baltimore, even with the Southern sympathies.
No, he would have been okay. So you attempted to. What are you raiding? What's it going to do?
It's going to make you move towards Baltimore. I don't want the Union to have. I want you to wonder what I'm doing, is what I'm saying.
First of all, the biggest problem that Lee has is he's out of touch with Stuart. If you sent Stuart down there to go out here, you would have permanently got rid of Stuart.
Well, he dies anyway later. I mean, you know.
You're going to get rid of Stuart that much sooner, is what you're saying. Because if you would have moved into here, right, all that would have happened is that the door would have closed and Stuart would cease to be a cavalry.
How many men did Stuart had? What, 2,500 men with him?
No, like that. No. He was like 10,000, 12,000 men.
Oh, he might have been able to take that artillery at Baltimore.
Yeah, and the what, the 400 or 500 troops that were left were going to do what?
I don't know. Shoot people with the artillery.
They go, you know what? Let's do Pickett's charge with Stuart's cavalry. What's the plan?
I don't know. What else? Like, dude, this is where the game is pretty much up, right? The jig's up after Gettysburg. So you got it.
Not okay. You could say that, but then again, is there a major battle that the South fights and wins after Gettysburg? The answer is yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say yes. There is a few. Not really in the West though, which. Unfortunately, after the Gettysburg series here, we have to talk about Bragg's punk ass, don't we?
Well, I mean, he does win at Chickamauga.
He win. Okay, I guess we'll give him a victory. I'm not a fan. I do. I'm not a fan.
You act like Bragg is totally useless. Bragg is not totally useless. He's just out general. And
hey, tell you what, I'll give you Bragg. I'll give you Bragg for the general I hate the most. Give me Sherman. I'll give you Bragg.
There's no freaking way I'm giving you Sherman. There's just no freaking way. Sherman is probably the brightest general of the year.
I'm not a big fan of Sherman, but I would trade you Bragg for Sherman any day of the week.
Guys, you do realize you're basically playing fantasy football, but in the Civil War here, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's no way I'm trading freaking Sherman for Bragg. There's no freaking way.
Oh, okay. Tell you what. I'll give you Lee, but I want Grant and Sherman.
Okay. I think I'd take that bet.
Really?
Yep.
That was actually, I was going to ask.
All right. One of the things that you tend to forget is Lee also had other qualities, his own personality. It was the fact that his personality that endeared him to many of the people in the South, especially the civilian population. Grant did not have that kind of personality, and in fact, Sherman personality was pretty irascible. All right, he would be hated by the Southerners long before.
Oh my God, you're right. Actually, all that would do is fuck the Confederacy all up. Like, those two are not gonna get along down there. Like,
okay, so I mean, you want to play that game, go for it, but you're gonna lose.
No. No, I think
let's give Lee all the forces he needs. What happens in the Peninsula campaign?
oh God, Lee, dude, done, over with.
I mean, you're the one who wanted to make the trade. That's not one of your brighter ideas. It really isn't.
That was a stupid trade. You're right. And Grant is so aggressive. He's overly aggressive. He would have wiped out the army of Northern Virginia in the Peninsula campain against Lee. Like, there would have been no army left.
He probably would have fell back immediately on the Richmond defenses. Grant did not. Only a single time did he attempt a frontal charge, and that was at Cold Harbor. Grant was much more into movement and maneuver. All right, he would have realized that he couldn't handle this, and he would have fell back almost immediately.
But no, we've gone over an hour though. Last thoughts, man. Okay, MC, you told me how my idea was wrong for what Lee should have did instead of fight at Gettysburg. What would you have done?
Well, all right, Lee. At this point, I think I agree with Jensen, and is that okay? Let's just pull back. The idea is to say, okay, what he should have done. What would have worked probably a little bit more possibly anyway, all right, would have been if he could have pulled back, if he could have gotten himself back in touch with Stuart, all right, sooner, and then ordered Stuart to find the ground that he needed to deploy on, all right. There would have been a series of skirmish engagements, okay, that you then would have had to endure. Okay, but as long as you know what you're doing and your army has reconsolidated itself, all right, you're okay. One of the things that you would have had to have done, of course, is prevent them from seeing where the majority of your forces are when you pull back. Okay, so you have to make a few staging type of movements. All right, back toward like Cashtown, right? To make them think that you're a little bit more separated, even though you've consolidated your forces. You'll have to throw a few units, like smaller units out there to make it look like your larger units are going towards Cashtown, as well as Chambersburg. That you're splitting your forces to see whether or not you could attempt to cause the Union forces to split. All right.
Okay.
That would have been an attempt number one that I would have tried.
Well, no, let's stop at number one because I liked that idea because that's kind of like what I was trying to say is I want to do a feint maneuver to try and get the Union to react to me and wonder what I'm doing instead of the other way around, which is what happened here, is Lee got caught with his pants down. I want to try and switch it up, and that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Well, in a way, but I'm trying to. I believe more when you're in a defensive position, when you're a defensive unit. Right, which Lee had to understand that his army had to remain more or less a defensive type of unit. You have to attempt in order to destroy an army. Okay, on the defense is you've got to draw them into a mobile into a trap where you can trap them mobily. Right. Basically, you're going to have to try and recreate the Battle of Cannae. All right. And that's what you're trying to strive for when you're in a defensive type of environment. Get your opponent to come in force, all right, into a trap that you're laid, where the trap is where he thinks he's on the charge. He's able to bring in his units where they consolidate their units in a smaller area that you can then surround and defeat that way. By preventing them from actually utilizing it. That I'm not saying that's what you're going to attempt to do. Would you have been able to do it with Meade? Probably not, but that's what you could have tried.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, I'm almost thinking about Sharpsburg. I mean, even if the Confederacy could have found a way to reproduce a Sharpsburg in the North, that would have done what Lee's objective was. His objective was to go up there and show the North that we are a fighting force. We can reach out and smack you, and we will. Right. And when
you're in that kind of a posture, though, you got to be careful, because if you get too aggressive in that kind of a posture, you end up exactly with what happened. You end up in a meeting engagement in an area that you didn't want to withdraw in, and unfortunately, one of the things that everyone talks about is that, well, the Southerners, they came into the Gettysburg from the north, and the North came in from the south that day. Yeah, that shows you a problem that Lee has, because Lee is somewhat in a precarious situation, because he can get cut off. His retreat can get cut off. His logistics can get cut off, and he could be defeated, all right, just because he runs out of supplies.
Yeah, but he's Lee, and he's not defeated. I mean, I don't consider this necessarily a defeat. They stood there for a whole nother day and waited, man. And I know we're not there yet, but that's what happened.
There to consolidate because for a variety of reasons, right? He's also reconsolidating and reconstituting his force. All right, one of the things, and we'll talk about this when we get there. When people talk about Pickett's charge, right? Pickett's charge was not as it was devastating. I'm not going to lie about that. But as far as from a troops go,
okay, at least you said it was real quick. At least you said it was devastating, because I thought I was going to have to fucking
it was
shut
devastating
you down
from
there,
a morale perspective. But Pickett's division is not completely wiped out. He could have reconstituted his division.
Should he have charged again?
No.
I mean, how many times are you going to fucking charge?
No.
No, and what makes me mad is, what's his name? Starts with a C, right? Fucking, when the Confederates are taking the hill and they're out of ammunition and they do a bayonet charge and the larger Confederate force surrenders to people with no ammo. It makes me so mad. And that's just...
All right, but the Confederates relied on ammo as well.
But that's so war too, right? Like, you don't know. You don't know that they're out of ammo.
You're talking about a group of people who have ran up that freaking hill into that hail of bullets
5 times.
5
times, right?
7 to 8 times. It was like 7 or 8 times.
Oh, wow.
Right? And you're talking about in 100-degree heat, all right, with all the humidity you want. You're running up the hill. They're just waiting for you. You're freaking tired, dude.
Yeah, but they took that hill, MC. They had the hill. They didn't know it. It makes me mad. They took the hill.
They didn't take it, and they never took it. And they never held it.
They could have. They had it. They had it.
They didn't have it.
God damn it. But no, that's not even
they
on
did
day
have
one.
It in a certain aspect, if you want to look at it. In some ways, you could say it was cut off. All right, but unfortunately, where you got one where the Union was cut off in the bulge that creates, right, is negative for the South, because the bulge in the South there is actually between the ravine, and it gets hammered with artillery. There are Confederate soldiers at Devil's Den that die without for all intents and purposes a bullet wound on them. But from the concussion of the guns ricocheting through the artillery ricocheting through the valley there, they actually died of concussions.
Oh wow, no man, and Gettysburg is a big subject. It really is, and that's why we're doing a multi-part series just on this one battle. I don't think we've done that before here on this video series, have we?
No. But it deserves it because of the importance of Gettysburg and what it actually entails, but also because it shows you the complications. It's a great microcosm of the war, right? In a lot of ways, it shows you the limitations on both sides, right? It shows you the experience on both sides. It shows you the fact that the Union, all right, its supply lines are now making a difference. The fact that you have the Spencer rifles from throughput at the beginning of this battle is telling. It has an impact, and it only gets worse from this point on.
That's right. And it is all downhill from here. For the Confederacy, that is. For America on a whole, maybe not. Then again, look at what's going on nowadays. You never know. But okay. You had another part of what you would do, because I want to know, like, even if we go another half an hour, I'm fine with it. Like, I want to know, like, you're Lee. What are you going to do here? You said your first idea. I cut you off and we elaborated. Now go ahead with your second idea.
The other idea that you can attempt to do, all right, is to swing if you can use you would have to sit up there and be willing to sacrifice half of your cavalry, right? Is to swing around with the vast majority of your army to the south, but swing, tell Stuart to pick a commander that he never wants to see again, right? And take half of that cavalry and swing around the north, all right? and create a major havoc while you sit up there and disengage and move to the south, right? At that point, you could sit up there and possibly, all right, get in position to threaten, all right, DC. All right. I see that Jensen has to leave. Thanks for joining us, Jensen. I appreciate it, man. But that's the only chance that you have to get between Washington, all right, and the Army of the Northern and the Army of the Potomac. It's the only chance you have, and you're going to write off. You're basically writing off 5,000 men because you're probably never going to see them again.
Either they're going to be sent to a Yankee prison camp, or they're going to be shot. Yeah.
Right, but that's where you're at with this. The biggest limitation that the South has is supplies. They could engage in a major battle. Great. All right. But once you engage in that major battle, you now have a problem of resupply. The Union does not ever have a problem of resupply. They've got the railroads and they've got the positions to resupply themselves from all over the place. They can bring logistics. Right. They're not hurting for supplies. This is the exact opposite of what the Confederacy has. The Confederacy has to build up, use the supplies that they built up, and then they've got to basically give ground again to where they can rebuild up these supply lines again. They can't be engaged in major activities continuously. This was why when Grant takes over, Grant engages Lee and never lets up on him. He basically forces him to use those supplies on a continuing basis until they run out.
Which is why I argue that y'all starved us out. You didn't beat us. But no, the thing is, though, all right, I get what you're saying here, but also you're running out of supplies behind your own lines if you're Lee, okay? You're not now Vicksburg, this day falls?
No,
right?
It falls on July 4th. It's still, at this point in time, it hasn't fallen yet.
Okay, so you still have a little bit. Yeah. Which means, for all intents and purposes, it did fall logistics-wise. You can't ship stuff through there. The Confederacy is already split in half.
From that perspective, you were not quite correct, but pretty close.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, if you're Lee and you want to, one, strike fear into the North and get them to sue for peace, and two, you're running out of supplies even in your own territory, why aren't you raiding and pillaging more than he actually does? Is it the gentleman's conflict?
Well, what are you going to get?
You got to get food, something. I mean,
food is one thing. What do you really need?
You need bullets.
Okay.
Mania, right? Like, come on. There's got to be places to raid, and
you got to know where they are, and you got to make sure that you're able to get it before they put a torch to it.
Which Stuart does a great job actually doing, even though he fucked the whole pooch.
Food, but he doesn't really get ammo and so forth. He arrived on day 3. Yeah, I mean he doesn't have a lot of. He's got a lot of food. He have 200 wagons of food basically. But as far as artillery and things like that, you got to remember the South when it kicks off the this artillery duel, right? Basically runs out of ammo. All right, and says, okay, you guys got to go. The Union forces actually start to conserve ammo because they're concerned about it as well. The problem is of course, the next day, the South still doesn't have the ammo, okay, but the Union can get more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so Lee was really stuck between a fucking rock and a hard place, right? I mean, there's nothing he could really do. I mean, you gave 2 ideas, but you even specified them with, I doubt it would work, right?
Right. I mean, they're major risks, and you're not dealing with the thing that people really underestimate at this point in time, and people constantly give short shrift to, is Meade. Meade is not the kind of commander that a lot of these guys have seen. He's a deliberate commander, right? He watches what goes on and he moves with deliberation. He is not somebody who just goes out there and swings his dick around. All right. He's not somebody that's going to run out there and throw his units away. He understands how to maneuver these units. Now,
do you think Lee was the general that threw his units away? Some people have accused Lee of being a bigger butcher than Grant.
Well, in a certain sense, but at the time, okay, the thing is that it's situational. All right. This is one of the differences between the situation. Lee understands what a situation is. The first thing you have to do is you have to understand what your situation is. Lee was doing a lot of the things that he did, not because, well, he felt like doing it. It was because he saw this as the only path to victory or the best path to victory. All right. It wasn't that he was trying to use, when he was attacking during the Peninsula campaign, his men got butchered. They lost, in fact, more men than the Union did.
That's right.
But they drove the Union out. But it had to be done. He couldn't let them sit there and build up.
No,
because if he did, he would have been totally destroyed. So, right?
And at that point, man, they're calling him Granny Lee behind his back. Like he just likes to build fortifications. Like, screw this guy. And he comes out fucking throwing punches. And he shoves the Union right out of there, man.
He came out throwing punches after he secured himself a possibility of if they would have thrown a haymaker back and flattened him, he had a place to fall back onto that was going to be strongly defensible. All right. He wasn't going to just go out there and swing in the wind either.
Yeah, he was smart. No, there's a reason why he's still beloved by the military even today, right, MC?
Oh yeah, very much so. All right, but the thing is Lee's, if the situations were reversed, where Lee had all the forces, Lee's reactions would not have been, you would not have seen him do a Chancellorsville. There would have been no need to it. But what he would have done is he would have basically enforced, he would have caused the force to take place, and he constantly would have been in combat. He constantly would have been driving the men and basically forcing the South to use up their resources quicker, all right, without any chance of resupply, and conquered them that way. There wouldn't have been this big retreat after he got his nose bloodied or stopped at a specific point, and he would have been, okay? I mean, a lot of times Lee, especially during the Peninsula campaign, was pushed back, all right? Malvern Hill is just one example, right? But Lee would have kept up the pressure. Lee would have kept the pressure up just like Grant did. That was the difference, right? Lee wouldn't have taken a lot of these ridiculous, chances that you see him taking at Chancellorsville, all right? You wouldn't have seen that. You wouldn't even have seen him attempt to do something like what he does at Gettysburg. You would not have seen that either. These were chancy operations that he was taking, but he understood that they were chancy operations. He was hoping that they could succeed. There was no chance that they were going to, but I mean, he was hoping that they could. Not at Gettysburg.
Yeah, well, Gettysburg was an accident, and it was a very, very bad accident. I mean, for all parties concerned, this is the bloodiest day in American military history, is it not? Bloodiest battle, sorry. But, right? I mean, they still to this day say the Gettysburg battlefield's haunted, MC. I mean, I don't really think you want to comment on that, but isn't that interesting? I mean, I don't know, man.
There's a lot of places. There's the battlefield of Shiloh is also considered a haunted area as well.
Yeah, no, and I love talking about paranormal shit, but that's not what we're here to do. I was just bringing it up as, this was a very sad time in American history, people. Whether you fucking think the South was right, you think they were evil and racist, either way, a lot of Americans died, right? It was a bad fucking battle.
No, it was a civil war. And the result was what it was. I mean, it is and this was the bloodiest battle of the war. It wouldn't have been, all right, if this could have been an absolute disaster for Lee, right? Which certainly in general,
but it wasn't, and I think that's part of his genius. And I still, I don't think you've given me a clear. I don't think you've given me a clear answer. Do you think he had a heart attack during this battle, and that changed his actual leadership ability?
Oh, whether he had a heart attack or not, I don't think it would have changed anything. I don't think it affected his overall tactics or anything. They're consistent throughout. So from that standpoint, no. I don't know if he had a heart attack or not. It doesn't look like he was never in command. Right? It doesn't look like he checked out for any length of time. So therefore,
have you heard that rumor before I brought it up?
Yeah, I'd heard it before.
Okay. I was going to say, because I've heard it. Like, I just wanted to make sure
but I think
you're
that's
not just
more
thinking I made
theory.
it up.
I think it's revisionist history, all right, in an attempt to explain Pickett's charge. Because the hindsight people have about Pickett's charge is just amazes me. Okay. They really don't. They really do a disservice both to Lee and but especially to Meade. All right, when they talk about it that way to try and explain Pickett's charge, they talk about how it's Lee's greatest mistake and all this other crap, and no one ever talks about Meade. This is why one of the reasons why I wanted to separate this out before as well. At this point in time in the battle, right, Meade doesn't arrive at his headquarters until like 2 a.m.
When does Lee get there? Because Lee, like, we're talking day one here. Lee barely even
there about 5 o'clock. All right.
Okay.
So that's where he starts to direct, saying, "Look, if we can take those hills, all right, I want to be able to take those hills if we can, if it's practical." But the reality was it wasn't practical, and Early understood this. A lot of people jump all over Early and Ewell saying that they could have done this, and no, they couldn't have.
Which I did. I did jump on him about it, right? Or like I tried to make that point. You're right. Go ahead and continue. But I'm one of those people that jump on them about it.
Right, but it wasn't practical. Okay, it wasn't. They didn't. The idea that your troops that you've watched and you've gone through in 100-degree weather, fighting basically all day long, were ready to charge up another hill into withering artillery fire, that they would have been able to take that hill, is proven that you can't do that kind of crap, all right, 2 days later.
Well, what about the Louisiana Tigers? They had fought all day, but they were still going pretty strong and pushing that right flank.
And what happens the next day when they attack, when they renew the attack on Culp's Hill? Do they take it?
We'll cover that next week. Come on, that was perfect. Come on now. But no, I think we are gonna wrap it up here. Last thoughts, MC. My last thoughts are simple. I don't think this is a battle that should have been fought. I think Lee, if he would have had what we have nowadays, would have pulled his troops back, consolidated somewhere else, and made a different move. But he didn't. It's not what happened, and the battle continues.
Well, the longer Lee had to wait, the longer Lee. See, this is something that no one else talks about with Lee. But Lee understood one thing. He couldn't stay in the North long. He could go in the North, he could roam around for a little bit, but the longer he had to wait, the worse it was going to be for him. Okay? So the idea that they could just easily get the Union, all right, to dance to their tune, to dance to their fiddle, all right, it's a bit wishful thinking. Okay.
I never said that I thought they could, but that's what you need to try and do with a smaller force, right? You got to make them divide. You got to fucking fake them out, right, MC?
Well,
like, that's where I was going with that.
You have to hit them and destroy them piecemeal, all right, to where you can destroy the entire army, which on the first day of battle, you could say that they were fairly successful at doing. They were able to bring in more forces overall against the Union forces, and they basically beat back First Corps. They basically beat back, I think, the 11th Corps under Howard. All right, but the rest of the Union forces.
No, absolutely. And those are your final thoughts?
Yep. Yes, those are my final thoughts.
All right. Thank you, guys. Everybody, we'll be back for the Red Eye stream tomorrow. It's New Year's Eve. We're going to do some news and stuff. We'll see how long I do the stream. I don't know. Maybe I'll get a bottle and we'll make a New Year's Eve party out of it. I don't know. But good night. Good luck. And, guys, remember, both sides were Americans, and this war was a terrible war. More American lives died in this war than any other. So it is what it is. Have a good one, guys.